Hey guys, welcome back. This is tutorial 7, part 4 now, and we are building a cooking script. This particular cooking script has the ability to disable particular recipes from being used based on the fact of your current cooking level and so on. So let's go through and put all of the windows that we've defined now, let's put them all on a scene so that we can see what we've built thus far. And then we can finish building it from there. So let's go ahead and define a scene. So we'll say call this scene cooking, and that is going to be less than scene base. Okay, so inside of this, we're going to define, rather than an initialize method, since we're not going to pass it any particular um, index or anything along those lines. We don't have a particular actor or anything, or so on. We don't actually need to pass it any variables, so we don't actually even need to bother with a initialize method, because the initialize method of scene base, or the main method, runs through this series of items: the start, performs transition, which then transitions to the scene, post start. So say for example you want to define all your windows, and then we're going to transition into the scene, and then we're going to allow the windows to transition from wherever they are onto your screen area. And then from there we'll go through and do our standard updating of the scene, and then we will pre-terminate. So if you want to have the windows scatter off of the screen and then have it go out, then you can do that. So you put that data in the pre-terminate, and then of course terminate is where we have to destroy the windows so that they completely go away. So what we're going to do is we're going to define ourselves a start, and this is going to push the windows into the scene for us. Okay, so we're going to say create windows. I like to do everything in a method. That way, if you ever want to add something new to this, all you got to do is add it to that method, and it automatically inserts it where it needs to be inserted. Okay, so here we are going to have our title, and that is going to be equal to cookingtitle.new. Okay, our next one is going to be our recipe list. So we're just going to call this one list. This is going to be cookingavailable.list.new. Okay, and our details is going to be in there as well. So we're just going to say details equals cookingdetails.new. Alright, so now all of our windows are defined. Now, what we need to do now is we need to define which one of those is going to start off as the active window. Okay, so we're going to set our list window as the active window. So we're going to set that one equal to true, and then we're going to set our details window equal to false. Now, the reason we have to do this is because Windows Selectable has a active or active equals false, or disabled or non-active state. And whenever it is active, then that means that it is going to have the control in that window, so that it's going to gather your input to find out what direction you're pressing and determine whether or not it should move up, down through the list, left, right, etc. So we need to set it active. But we not only need to set it active, we need to set its index equal to 0. Now the reason we set the index equal to 0 is if it is anything less than 0, it's disabled. So there's no flashing cursor. So the default for that is -1. But we need to set that value to 0 so that it starts at the first item in the list. Remember, because it's an index is always going to be, in programming, one less than the position it's in. So if it's position 1, it's going to be 0. If it's position 3, it's going to be 2, etc. Okay, so we've now gone and defined our windows. So for now, we're not going to do any sort of post start method, but I'm going to put it there so that we can do it later. So we can do it like a screen transition or something, so that you can see how to move windows out or into the scene a little bit easier, so that it just makes it more fancy there. Okay, and then now we're going to define our update. We're going to define our pre-terminate. Is it pre_terminate or just pre-terminate? Let's go look. It was pre_terminate. And then terminate. All right. So our update method. What we're going to do right now is we're just going to say if list.active equals true, then update list return, and if details active equals true, double equals not 1. If it's only 1 equal, then that means it's going to set it. If it's 2, it's checking it. Okay, and this one is going to be update details return, and that is that. Okay, so now we've got our updating for whichever particular one we're looking at. Let's go ahead and define this one first. Update list. So when the list window is active, if I'm going to press an input, so if input.trigger, and we're going to say the default input, which is C, then we're going to, we need to determine whether or not the currently selected one is active or not, and then we need to play a buzzer if it's not and return so that it doesn't do anything. And if it is active, then if it is not disabled, then it needs to set the cooking details window as active and go through that process so that that window has the control. So what we need to do is we need to first go back to our cooking available list, and we need to have it reveal what recipe or what item we've currently got selected. Let's see, it did not store any of that, so we don't need to do that. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to gather it from the party. So we're going to say gameparty.learnedRecipes based on the index of the list window. Okay. And that is going to get us a recipe ID. Okay, so now we're going to pass that up further to the next step, which was the cooking recipes. All right. We're going to pass that the recipe ID. And this is going to be our data. And so from that we can get the item or the cooking level. The cooking level was the 3rd position, so we're going to say data 2, which is the 3rd position of the index. We say if data 2 is greater than game party.cooking level. So only if it exceeds it, then we're going to play the buzzer. So sound.play buzzer, and we're going to return, and that is it. If it is not, then we're going to play the decision sound, and then we are going to set the current window as disabled, so that was list.active equals false, and then we're going to set the details window to active equals true, and then we're going to set the index of it equal to 0. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to have, well, I'm not always going to press on that item. What if I hit cancel? So we're going to do if input.trigger input ::b, which is the cancel command. We're just going to go ahead and play the cancel command, sound.play cancel, and then we are going to return to the map. So scene equals scene map.new. And that will go through the process for pre-terminate, terminate in order to get out of the scene. So let's go ahead and define our terminate here. So we're just going to destroy those three windows. .dispose and .dispose. All right, so that takes care of it. We've got all of the data inside of here. We should be able to call the scene now. It's going to go through the update process. We should be able to select our items from our learned recipe list and so on. But the one thing we have not done yet is how do we learn a recipe? So we're going to try to make that a little bit easier for you. So defaultly, we could type in, game party.learn recipe and then specify a number, which it works, but it's a little bit long. I commonly get people complaining that that the command I issue is just too long for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to define something inside of our interpreter. Now the reason we're defining this inside of the interpreter is that it means that it's going to be, we can do it in shorthand. So if we say learn recipe number, then we can go ahead and call the full long version of it, learn recipe number, and then return. Or we can do our forget recipe, and number, and then that will also call its corresponding method. And that's it. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to just type this into a call script. So here I've set up a fancy little merchant guy, and I was playing around with it a little bit earlier, but we're going to just remove that. So we're going to give ourselves 10 potions. Okay? Any potions, any high potions and whatnot, we're going to have to make them ourselves. So he is going to give us 10, let's have him just give us 20 so that we should have plenty to work with. Okay, so we're then going to call a script in order to teach us that recipe. And so we are going to say learn recipe number 1. And then we're also just going to learn recipe number 2 while we're at it, just because. Okay, and so he will teach us those, and then we're going to have another one here, this little boy here, I guess, and he is going to transfer us to the other scene. So we'll just say scene equals scene, what was that, cooking? Oops, too many O's, .new. Let's go verify that just to make sure we've got that. It was scene cooking. Okay, so we were good. Okay, let's go ahead and test this out. Alright, so we are going to come up here and talk to this guy. Alright, he should have now taught us those as well as gave us the items. We can verify that, just open up the items, and there we can see we've got our potions. So we should know those recipes. Notice, of course, we did not get any sort of error message. We didn't have to put in game party dot and so on. We just had to type learn recipe. Okay, so let's go ahead and open our scene. So we're going to talk to this boy, and he says, oh boy. crash. Undefined method open close array. So it's trying to reference something for nil class. So let's find out what line it died on. And let's see, we did that a couple of times. Did I misspell something? I don't see anything misspelled. Try it immediately. So let's go ahead and break these apart like this. Oh, you know what? I know why it's breaking. The reason it's breaking is because the recipe is nil. So that's why it crashes out. So what we need to do is say, well, if there is if there is no recipe supplied, then just return. So we'll just say return if the recipe equals nil. Okay. You know what? Let's do that after the content create. All right. Let's try that one more time. All right. Let's go ahead. We'll talk to this guy up here on the top. Get our items. Come down here and talk to him. And here we can see we've got our data. Here we've got our high potion. And let's see. It's not allowing me to scroll it. 0 frames per second. That's probably just due to my recorder here. But let's go ahead and close that. We could see plainly that our level was pushed too far off of the top. So let's go up and correct that real quick. That was part of our title. We said 544. Well, the reason it's pushed off of the right is because it's not really 544, it's 544 minus the barriers on left and right, which is 32. So there's 16 on either side, add those, obviously you get 32. So we'll just decrease those and we should be good there. Alright, let's go back down, and we were not setting the value of the... Oh, I know why it wasn't working. It's because we didn't update our windows. So we said we wanted to define all of our details on what we're going to do, but if we don't tell those windows to update, then obviously their contents and so on are not going to refresh. So as part of the update method, we're going to say update windows. Alright, so we're going to come down here and define our new method. And we're going to come down to the dispose here, and we're going to grab those, put them back up here, and we're going to replace the word dispose with update. And update. Alright, so we've now got that. We're going to go ahead and so now the list window should be selectable, but one thing we're still not doing is we're still not pushing the data over to the details panel. So we'll actually cover that here in just a second, but let's go ahead and test play it again just to see that we've got the one working, and we'll go from there. Say new game. We'll talk to our top guy up here, and he gave us our stuff. And before we open that up, let's go to the menu. And of course, the save option is disabled already because I removed that in the previous one. So I guess we'll just keep on doing that. Okay, so here, now you can see number 1 up here, our cooking is displayed, our level is displayed, and this time it is not off of the screen. 2, we have the ability to scroll between our options over here, but we do not have the details window being filled out. So we'll jump to that here in just a moment. It looks like we're at time now, so I'm going to just turn it off. We'll actually start or continue on the next one. Okay, see you in a minute.